Welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast, where I, Genevieve Faulkner, share what I'm becoming aware of. Hello and welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast. My name is Genevieve Faulkner, your host, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about conscious relationships. What are they? How do you create them? And do they actually work? So I'm hoping that this podcast is actually going to inspire you to look at that for you and work out what it is that means for you. Something that I've been doing over the past year after leaving Access Consciousness is really being in question about what it is that's true for me and what is it that's just information that I kind of, heard and then kind of duplicated or regurgitated. And so this is something that I've been in question about. Now, for me, what a conscious relationship is one that is very much designed to include as much as your being as possible, as much as the other person's being as possible, and is created from the space of being aware, being in choice, and being inclusion of both yourself and the other person and everything else. And that, is very different to the way in which a lot of relationships are structured in this world. So a lot of people do relationships from the place of need. They will attract people based upon the subconscious agendas that they have to fulfill the needs that they have, like they need to be taken care of, they need to be loved, they need someone to financially support them. All of these different needs, and I'm not making any of these wrong, by the way, okay? This is just me, just sharing an awareness and hopefully assisting you to get clear on a few different things. All of those needs that then pull in a particular kind of person. Now, the thing is about need is a lot of those needs are actually a lie. So a need is created when you're not actually acknowledging a part of your being. And so you create this kind of void, this energetic void that then creates the need of which you think you require from another being in order to fulfill you. Except when you're not actually being that energy for yourself, because it's a void, which is kind of like a black hole, it doesn't allow that energy to really get absorbed, or it doesn't really allow you to receive that energy in the same way that you would if you were actually being it for yourself. And so the way that a lot of relationships are created and set up in this world is that they're in a sense designed to fail, because unless the person actually steps into the parts of their being that allows them to receive those energies from an outside source, they won't receive it. They would create a judgment in order to avoid it, and then that ultimately begins the destruction of the relationship instead of the creation of something different or greater. And so, beyond all of that, so if we were to actually create relationships from a different space, now all of that, I just want to say all of that is a lot of what is passed down in our DNA, okay? So it's kind of like we get this blueprint of the way in which to create relationships, the way in which to function in relationships, the kinds of people that we find attractive with our DNA. And so if we weren't creating it from that blueprint, and if we were creating it from the place of the vastness of our being, acknowledging everything that we are, being the demand of kind of being everything that we are, how would the relationships be different? So effectively from that place, it would be a whole being and then another whole being, ideally. And this is an ideology, really, because maybe we haven't quite got there, but what if we were to head in that direction, Ideally, you'd have two whole beings, okay? And so the way in which they would engage would be very different, because there wouldn't be that kind of need. When you have a need in the relationship, what occurs is you think that you require that other person, and that will often create this resistance to losing them. And so you'll create this control mechanism in order to try and hold on to them. But that actually stifles growth for the other person if they buy into, whatever it is that you've created in order to try and control. And it can limit the growth for you also, because it's not allowing you to get to the depth of whatever it is that you're holding on to or not acknowledging about yourself, that's eliminating you stepping into more of your being. So I hope I'm making sense here. But for me, conscious relationships is effectively a way in which to create relationships that is very much about acknowledging your being, choosing from that vastness, celebrating that vastness, exploring the energies of you, and effectively working both with yourself and the other person to navigate the minefield of relational limitations that we all have inherited with these blueprints, and dissolving them, dismantling them so that they are no longer there, so that both parties can expand into even greater versions of themselves. Okay, so how do you actually create that? I mean, it all sounds amazing, but how do you actually create it? I think, first of all, you have to have a commitment within yourself to have that with you, okay? So you will know what actually works for you on some level. And this is what I would like, if you don't, this is what I would like to invite you to look at. Okay, what actually works for you in relationship? What does relationship mean to you? What do you value in relationship? For some people, you know, there might be some of you that will have listened this far and you'll be like, holy crap, this woman thinks way too much about this. That ain't for me. I just want someone to enjoy dinner with, and then I want to watch my TV, right? It's kind of like some people, they're not on this journey. That's okay. This might not be the journey for you. Acknowledge it if it isn't. What works for you in relationship? Now, if you're somebody that does listen to what I've said and kind of goes, yeah, that might be something similar, not the same, but similar to what I know is possible or what I desire. How do I get there? You have to be willing to look at your own world and look at what relationship means for you, okay? What works for you in relationship? What are you valuing about relationship now? And in order to have that, you've got to have that vulnerability with yourself, okay? So effectively, you have to let go of any judgment you have of yourself and allow yourself to get really clear, go inwards and look at, okay, what do I desire? What am I willing to have? What do I know works for me, and what am I yet to discover? Okay? You've got to be willing to have that commitment with yourself, I believe, to, in a sense, drive yourself forward to break free of the points of view, the limitations, the outdated belief systems within the subconscious mind that are keeping you from actually being who you came here to be. People that desire conscious relationships, from what I'm aware of, are very much I guess, I don't want to put them all in the same category yet, a group of people who have come here, I believe, to assist in breaking down these generational patterns. Okay, and so in a sense, I think in order to create conscious relationships, you've got to acknowledge that within yourself if you are someone that is here for that. Are you a circuit breaker? Are you here are you someone that knows something different is possible here on this planet with regards to relationships? And if somewhere in your world, even if you're not totally sure what that is, but something I'm saying is like pinging you, what is that? And is it possible that a part of kind of wherever you are now is designed to get you to the place where you really look at what that is and start to actually allow that to integrate and let go of whatever stuff that you've carried within you that's a limit, like stopping that from really actualizing and stopping that you from really being that on this planet. So this is what I believe has to occur in order to actually create these kinds of relationships with other people. You've got to first acknowledge if that is you, okay? If that is you, you've got to have that commitment to yourself. Okay, no matter what it takes, I'm going to be me. No matter what it takes, I'm going to have me. No matter what it takes, I'm going to create the relationships I know are possible. And no matter what it takes, I'm going to end those generational patterns. I'm no longer going to be them. I'm no longer going to allow the unconscious agendas of others to dominate or navigate the way in which I create relationships or the way in which I make choices. And it's from there, okay, making that commitment. That means being that energy of your being enough, being that present in your life enough to not only be the one that's living the experiences, but the one that observes what is occurring. So it's the willingness to have that inner reflection and noticing the moments where you get triggered. When you get triggered, it's because of some sort of belief structure that you're holding on to, some sort of experience that you're holding on to from the past. And in those moments, you have two choices. You have the choice to go into reaction of it and effectively deny the parts of you that know something greater is possible and become the effect of it again. Or you have the ability to look at it and go, hang on a minute, I am triggered right now. What is this really about? What is occurring for me? What invitation is this for me to unravel some of that pattern or to let go of some of those emotional energies and allowing yourself to go there? Now, there are so many different ways in which you can release things. Sometimes it's just being that present and noticing it will allow that change to occur. Other times it might be, okay, I need some help here. I need a session with somebody, doing some mindset work, doing some transformation work, doing some energy work in order to shift this. But it's the willingness to actually acknowledge it and then allow it to change that creates the space for growth. And I truly believe that conscious relationships are ones that are always inspiring and allowing growth, both in both parties, okay? A lot, because of as I mentioned before, because of the way in which a lot of relationships are structured on this planet and the needs that create them and the control systems, a lot of relationships will often stifle growth. People can subconsciously have the agenda to have the other person stay the same way because they're afraid of the discomfort of that person growing in a way that may not work for them or that may trigger something in them that they don't want to look at. To have a truly conscious relationship, you have to be willing to look at anything within your world. Because anytime you go into the denial of a trigger in a relationship with another person, you actually are in danger of perpetrating something on them because of you not being willing to look at whatever that original thing is that's created the situation or that's creating your response to the situation. Okay? So when you've got that willingness to create that change within yourself and that willingness to be accountable for your choices and that willingness to be responsible for what it is that you have to shift, that's where you can kind of invite another to create a conscious relationship with you. Now, ideally, they might have the same kind of value system. I think that in order to have a truly great relationship, a lot of the time, you do have to have similar values. Because if somebody, in a sense, values being comfortable, sometimes to some people being comfortable means no change. Yet if you've got another person that values growth, that's like two conflictual values that are going to create a kind of tug-of-war power dynamic in a relationship that isn't necessarily going to work. So to create a truly great conscious relationship, you've often got to have two people or more than two people that really value the same thing: growth, expansion, the willingness to be 100% you, right? The willingness for them to be 100% them. which means the willingness to allow the other person to make you incredibly uncomfortable with their choices, because not all of the time they're going to choose things to make you comfortable. They'll choose things that are actually going to expand their being, that may bring up insecurities. But every single time that gets created, that's actually an invitation for you to go inwards and look at, okay, what is this bringing up for me? Where can I step into more of me from this experience? Now, I want to kind of bring in, I think it takes quite a commitment to growth, expansion, and to yourself to be able to create relationships like this. And the reason for that is because I think that it is a very different way of doing relationship, but also to have a relationship that is like that, you've got to be willing to be you've got to be willing to have that commitment, because you've got to be able to look at yourself and look at when you are triggered, look at when the person is triggering you, and not create any kind of control structure in order to try and control them so that you feel better. And instead allow everything to unravel in your world. Yet at the same time, you have to be willing to be a space that allows them to have the full expression of themselves and not need to control that either. Okay? So we all have, none of us are perfect. We all have places and spaces from our past that we still have data. We still have suppressed emotional energy. We still have trauma. There are times in any relationship where people will go into behaving like a child, behaving like the oppositional teenager, behaving, going into blame, going into, we're all people, we all do this. So it takes that commitment to yourself to be able to actually be a space that allows not only you to go to those places and not judge it, because when you judge it, you're actually locking yourself in that box. Like if you have a point of view about being like a child, you won't allow those child parts of you that are stuck to unravel. You won't allow them to integrate. You'll keep them separate, but in that separateness, it actually creates the unconscious, I want to say toxicity in relationships, because it's kind of like when you do that, it's kind of like all of the anger or all of the rage or all of the kind of stuff that's been locked up, that's created that separation with that part of you, starts to leak out into the relationship or into your lives in ways that you don't realize it. Whereas if you have no judgment of yourself for actually behaving that way, it allows it to start to unravel, okay? And so really it takes that commitment of self and that allowance of yourself to be able to go to those places and let it unravel. And when you do that and allow whatever to shift and change, it does allow you to be that space with another that allows them to go to those places within their world without you reacting to it. Because anytime if you're in a relationship with someone and they're behaving like a child and you're judging them for behaving like a child, chances are you've got places and spaces where you are kind of locked up in that child dynamic too, but you're not allowing yourself to go there and change that. So you're judging them. And in the judgment, that's creating a control structure that actually makes it harder for them to change and shift and go beyond that energy also. Okay, so it's that space of allowance of kind of letting whatever is occurring in the moment to be without reaction that creates a conscious relationship. But it's also in that, I kind of want to say that there's kind of like this space that you can be when you have the space of your being. It allows you to hold that space of whatever that is and still have you. So as I said, we all have the ability to go to those places. We all have stuff that needs to be resolved. But we also all have an incredible power, an incredible vulnerability, an incredible, like we are incredible beings, right? Something that I did like earlier this year was a Tantra retreat. And when I did that retreat, you know, there was a lot of exercises of different meditations that I won't go into them all now, but I can remember this one day where I was extremely triggered. Like this person on this class had brought me into all sorts of like, you know, unresolved trauma stuff. And I was feeling very conflicted, not sure how to express it, wanting to bring it up with the group, kind of, you know, like just all over the place, basically. And we got to class, and instead of kind of the teacher allowing it all to be brought up then, she made us get into a circle, 2 circles, and do this meditation of eye gazing, you know, connecting to one another with a partner, and kind of just breathing, meditating, looking into each other's eyes. And through that process, it was such a gift, because I think that had it been brought up in the moment that I wanted to bring it all up, it could have created more of a reactional type energy that maybe wouldn't allow things to resolve in the same way, which means, you know, a reperpetration of whatever original kind of situation had created the pain inside of me. And so with the meditation, what occurred was, when you're meditating eye to eye with someone, it actually kind of takes you out of the lower harmonics that's often kind of locked, you know, all of the things that are kind of locked up within those lower chakras, which is a lot of those relationship programs and the unresolved, you know, pain, trauma, when you've got stuff going on in those lower chakras. And it causes you to have to kind of like be more in the vibrational frequency of the vastness of your being. And from that space, it allows you to actually occupy more of an energy of oneness, and the power of that, and the communion of that, and it gives you this ability to acknowledge your being, but also the other person's being. And I think that, you know, that was such a beautiful experience for me, because as we went around the group, you know, there were moments in that I was so triggered, and there were moments where it's like in that meditation, I would waver, you know, like would be holding this person's gaze, and at the same time, like, God, I just wanted to kind of like crumble into, you know, like the wounded, you know, teenager or whatever it was that just wanted to purge and cry and all of that and be wounded. And yet it wasn't the time for that. And in the meditation of someone being with me in that moment and holding that space of looking into my eyes and acknowledging my being, there was an acknowledgement of my power that assisted me to kind of integrate this more of the strength of my being that was beyond the wounding that had been triggered. And there was such a beauty to that experience, because as I went around the group, I wasn't the only one that was triggered. So there were other people in these different vibrational frequencies of, on one hand, trying to maintain this energy of really like, I'm being here with you, I'm present with you from the space of love. Yet at the same time, moments where they were, God, I you know, this is a lot, you know. It had been 6 days or something at this point. There was all sorts of, you know, ups and downs and all sorts of stuff going on. And so in those moments, I would get to be that gift also of strength, of acknowledging that person's being, of being that energy of, you've got this, you know, like, even though I see your pain, I see that there's emotional energies that are up and that need to clear, and that there's, you know, all of this programming that needs to be released, yet at the same time, I can see the beauty of your being, the magic of your being, the strength of your being, and I know that you are going to shift beyond this. And I get that for me, that is very much what a conscious relationship is about. It's about allowing that full vastness of the experience to be included, acknowledging that, yeah, we have like this unresolved stuff sometimes that has to be worked through, that has to be integrated, that has to change. Yet it's also acknowledging that vastness, that beauty, that magic, and the consciousness of the other person and your own consciousness that allows the transformation to occur from a place of empowerment of one another, not needing to control one another, and allowing each other to function from their own awareness of what is required in order to change. So I know for me, in that experience, there was such a gift in each person that I went round the group with of receiving different awarenesses. And this is the other part of this that I wanted to bring in. I do not believe that we should ever give up our awareness for anybody else. I do not believe that we should be making anybody else more aware than us. Yet at the same time, if we have the point of view that we are the most aware person in the relationship, it can create this dynamic of superiority where you're not actually allowing the beauty of the transformation of what I believe the true dance of consciousness can be. I believe that we all have different areas of awareness that may be greater than what others are, because we all have different blind spots. There's parts of our psyche that we all have, more points of view about. And so whatever the relationship is that you have with whoever it is, because conscious relationships are not just romantic relationships. If you are somebody that desires growth or values growth in relationships and like them to be conscious relationships, that might be a lot of the relationships you have. So if you are creating these conscious relationships with others, rather concluding that you are the one with the most awareness, you are the conscious one, and therefore kind of putting them in this category of less than you, and you having to facilitate them into something. What if you were willing to be in question about what is it that I can learn and receive from this person also? So I do believe, like, what are the places that this person's awareness is superior to mine? And what are the places that my awareness is superior to this person? Because if you're willing to be aware of both, that's where it can be much more of a dance. It can be much more of a constant gifting and receiving, instead of this element of stagnation because you've concluded one particular thing. So I hope that this has contributed to you guys. And, I don't want you to align or agree with anything that I've said in this. I'm hoping that it inspires something. But I would also like to invite you to look at what's true for you. What is a conscious relationship for you? What is it that you desire in relationship? Is it anything like that? Perhaps it isn't. And if it isn't, what do you desire? What's important isn't that we're all on the same path. What's important is that we're all on the path that we desire to be on, right? And if this is the path that you desire to be on, one where you are having the continual growth and expansion of your being, one where you're witnessing the continual growth and expansion of the beings that are in your life, or the people that are in your life, what commitment can you make to yourself that would allow you to have that? So it's that willingness to go inwards. It's that willingness to acknowledge when you're triggered. It's the willingness to be accountable. It's the willingness to not go into those places it's the willingness to go to those places when it's required to unravel the stuff, but not stay there, you know? We all have the ability to go down into those lower harmonics of reality and explore that. But is that where you want to live? So I would invite you, if you desire more consciousness in your relationships, look at, where am I not being accountable? Is there any place where I'm going into blame? These are the places where you're not acknowledging something within your world, and it's where you create a sticking point and an elimination of the growth, okay? That said, with conscious relationships, there is also a requirement. If you've got that within yourself, if you desire that for yourself, if you want that conscious expansion, if you know that that's what you value and that that's what's important to you, you will also get an awareness of sometimes in relationships where someone is not congruent with that. Someone is not willing to go where you want them to go. Someone needs to take more time than you do to get to a certain space or place within themselves. And it's I believe, being, a being that is truly conscious, truly aware, functioning from choice, functioning from awareness, you have to be willing to let that person have the journey that they're having. You have to be willing, in a sense, to let them go, not drag them to the finish line, okay? It's the willingness to actually let them have their choice that is actually a kindness to both of you. And that means that sometimes you've got to be brutally honest with yourself about when it's time to give space in a relationship or even end a relationship. Because sometimes we can have this resistance to ending something because we're afraid of being alone, or because we, create some sort of attachment to something or someone. And yet if they're not desiring the same journey or same adventure as you, or they're just not quite capable of going wherever it is that you desire to go, if you're not willing to actually still go to the place that you can go without them, you end up creating something less than what is possible, not just for yourself, but also for them. Okay? So it's having that honesty with yourself of when it's required to create distance, when it's required to create space, and when it's required to let someone or something go. And I promise you that if any of you are experiencing anything like that in a relationship, and what you're getting triggered into is that place of, oh my God, but I don't want to be alone. I truly believe that for whatever vibrational frequency you are on, there are always other beings that can meet you, okay? I do not believe that we are ever alone. When you're willing to have all of you, I believe that we are connected to everything. And you can, when you're willing to have that from the space of total kind of allowance and receiving of yourself, I believe that you can actually kind of engage with anyone that you care about in a way that allows you and them to have some sort of connection, but not from the place of you having to force them on some sort of journey or limit yourself in order to maintain the relationship. Okay, so in a sense, I believe that conscious relationships truly include a level of freedom of both parties, because in order to have a truly conscious relationship, you have to allow yourself to have total choice, and you have to allow the other person to have total choice. without needing to control one another for your own agendas. So is that something that you're brave enough to choose? And if not, like, I don't want to put any superiority into this. Like, it really is just a choice. But what I want to invite you to is to look at this, and I do hope that this has inspired you. And if there is anything about this that, you know, you want to comment on, feel free to leave me comments. If there's anything you want me to expand on, please let me know. And I hope whatever you get out of this, I hope it does inspire you to look at what is it that you truly value in relationships, what is it you truly desire, and what commitment can you make to yourself to have it. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I'm very grateful. Till next time. Mwah.